It's the Brad and John Show.
It's November 21st, 2024. This is the B Block, and the reason I mention that is because officially we are now into season number 2, right, John Combest?
That's exactly right. We had our 1-year anniversary yesterday, Brad.
Season number 2. Now, a couple things to talk about. There was a time, this guy called me back, I think it was beginning of August, and said, essentially, I don't think I want to do the show anymore. This is going to be my last month. And then on the last day of the month, when I said to this guy, and do you remember who that was?
I do. And I also remember a year ago when an avid listener to our show congratulated us on doing the show together. And I said, we'll wrap this up either February or March. I said, there's no way Brad and I will go past then.
Wow. We made it a whole year.
Yeah, I said you would drive me absolutely nuts. I thought that your lack of execution, long-term planning, etc., would annoy me so much that I would be like, I can't do this anymore.
John,
and we had that conversation in August, so things kind of came to a head. And now things are just great, Brad.
John is always complimenting me. I mean, I'm
just saying, like, hey, different people execute on different timetables and have different plans and things. But Brad, one of the joys of doing the show with you is I have told you this before. I've complimented you on this many times. I have learned to let a lot of things go. On my website, for 20 however many years, I'm used to doing everything my way. I'm used to executing in an exact time every day, coming through 100% every day, no excuses. I can't control everything else in the world. I can only control my website. So I am grateful for the opportunity to be on the air with you, Brad.
Boy, John, listen to John. And talk about an industry where I can't control anything. I can't control the electric companies. I can't control the internet service providers. I can't control.
Hey, that's true, Brad. You absolutely have no control. That we don't control internet servers. And as a guy that's run a website, I haven't run websites as long as you have because you've been on the internet longer. There are at least 2 days a year, Brad, where my website is delayed for either 2 and sometimes 3 hours. And that happens about every 18 months for me. So there's things that I just can't control, and there's things that you can't control. And but anyway, Brad, back to your larger point, you're right. I came back in August, and I was like, I don't see a path forward. I see no vision. I see no future. I don't think that there's any point in doing this. This is a giant time suck with no reward. And I was wrong about that, Brad, because I view this, again, as a very rewarding hobby.
It's a hobby to John.
It's a hobby I spend several hours a day in the prime of what should be my peak earning years, dedicating it to this.
It was either this or HO model trains, right? Wasn't that what you told me?
I think so. You were about to make a point, though, Brad.
Okay. I have to ask you, as you and I are both white dudes from North County, right?
That's right.
Interesting story yesterday. Do you know who Representative Jasmine Crockett is? She's a Democrat.
This is so great. Yes, this is so good. And Brad, tell the story about the time that you were dragged out of your house and forced to work.
Well, okay. First off, let me come back to the fact that I used to listen to Adam Carolla all the time years ago when he was live on the air with Dr. Drew in the old Nightline program. They used to run it between 10 and midnight on 105.7.
Loveline, right? It was called Loveline.
105.7 The Point. Okay. Adam was one of the pioneers in podcasting. Do you know the story about Adam and podcasting?
I do, yeah. We've talked about it on the show a couple times.
At one point in time, Adam and guys like Joe Rogan, people like that, have been doing podcasting a long time. And at one point in time, Adam was in the Guinness World Book of Records as having the most number of downloads of his podcast. Okay, if you go back and take a look at, if you can find an old Guinness World Book of Records, the year that was in there, the number of Adam Carolla podcasts would be probably akin to the people who are downloading our show. And the answer to that question is not many people, because the podcasting is exploding.
Thanks, Brad. That helps reinforce our status as one of the top shows
what I'm
in
saying
Missouri. Thank you.
You've got guys like who used to be the number one guy, probably isn't even in the top 1,000 anymore, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, so there are certain things that end up on the internet, and this Jasmine Crockett thing ended up on the internet yesterday. She goes into this. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I listened to part of it. She goes into this whole rant on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives yesterday.
She was in a committee hearing, right?
Right. Yes. And what is she complaining about? The white man, right? It's you and me, John.
That's right. It's our fault, Brad.
She's complaining about you and me. Now, here's what's interesting. The thing is, she says, White men have never been oppressed in the United States. John, you and I lived in North County. Wasn't there a certain level of oppression in our day of living in North County? I mean, at least there was in my book.
I think so, but let me interrupt. I don't hear you spending a lot of time complaining about it. And I think that when you entered your professional career, Brad, and people ask you where you went to high school and you told them and they scoffed and they laughed and they poked fun at you, I don't hear you seeking revenge on those people today. I don't see you making rants in public forums about, yeah, and then one time I was talking to that girl from Koryezu and she didn't like the fact that I drove an Olds Cutlass. You know, I don't hear you talking about that.
Okay. There are 3 words that I've learned a long time ago, which have helped me some days when I get very frustrated and things don't go right and I'm trying to do something and it goes sideways and things like that. The 3 words are life ain't fair, right?
Yes. Thank you, Brad.
That's essentially the bottom line is you and I both know very talented people who have had horrendous lives. They've had terrible marriages, bright, smart, talented people, and that you and I also know some people who are not so bright and not so smart who have made millions of dollars and have wonderful lives, okay? Life ain't fair. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, Brad. And I think, you know, what you've brought up before, and one of the things that you do a good job of pointing out is you read a lot of biographies, like folks who were business leaders, folks who were society leaders. We hear a lot of stories about folks who had a miserable upbringing, who have risen like a phoenix out of the ashes. What we don't hear as much about, and I don't think what you and I talk about, is the fact that there's plenty of people who also had a terrible upbringing who go on and commit a lot of crimes or who go on and hurt people emotionally, physically. So a lot of times it's not that rough upbringing that necessarily makes everybody great, but a percentage of people use that adversity to overcome it. You get what I'm saying, Brad?
I know exactly what you're saying. And some people, the adversity makes them. Some people, the adversity breaks them. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, you're exactly right, Brad.
And the interesting part of it is I know people right now, and I won't mention people's names on the air, that I know a couple people that recently I heard about their past, and I'm thinking to myself, how do you get out of bed every day? You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
I would have the bottle of Jack Daniels. You know, I would have Jack Daniels as an infusion if I had your life way back when. And these are some of the most productive, some of the most successful people. Then the other side of the coin, you probably know some of these kind of people as well too. Maybe hanging out with some of your fellow classmates at Washington University, the trust fund kids who don't have to ever go to work, don't have to ever make $1 in their life, and every month a nice chunk of change gets deposited in their account, and they can do pretty much whatever they want with it. Right now,
that's exactly right.
Some of those people are great, upstanding, wonderful people that do great things in the community. Some of them are just jerks, and everybody else is somewhere in between, right?
And some of them are complete spoiled brats. You're right.
Right.
And then some of them were raised well and are decent people.
So this Jasmine Crockett goes on the fact where she says, she responded to a Republican colleague championing the bill as a strong response to the oppression of our rights, liberties, and freedoms. Crockett strongly objected to the Representative Clay Higgins from Louisiana using the word oppression. She goes on to say, you consistently said over and over the word oppression, and every time that you said it, it was almost as if I wasn't hearing nails on a chalkboard, because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression. And I ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression, she said. And so as I sit here, as a black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of our classrooms is because you can't misuse the words oppression. Now, see, this is my situation, okay? You've got what, 1% Singhalese, and is that what you always say?
That's exactly right. Okay. Yes, I am a person of color.
Okay, and I am a person of color too. I'm a Mocha Java, but that's
Mocha Java. Yeah.
You know what is interesting? On our show, on this very station, the other afternoon, and I thought I was the only guy who ever remembered this name. The guys, Mark Lee Van Camp and Robinson, were on between 3 and 6 o'clock. They brought up the old thing of Rachel Dolezal. Remember the Rachel?
Oh yeah, the woman with kinky hair that liked to curl it so that she appeared to be black.
Okay, and the point being that they were pointing up the fact that, and here we go again, of the whole situation with what's going on. They were using all these sort of, obscure references, but they used that reference a couple times, and my ears perked up right away because I know exactly who Rachel Dolezal is. But they were talking about this current, controversy at the Senate where there is now a transgender person, was it from Delaware or someplace up in the one
that wants to use the women's restroom, and Nancy Mace says, hold the phone.
Right, and essentially Johnson, who is the Speaker of the House, essentially came out and said, look, this is the way it's going to be. If you were born a man, you'll use the men's room. If you're born a woman, you use the women's room. But there's lots of unisex bathrooms. And he pointed out, which is sort of interesting, and I think this is sort of interesting, he says there's a bathroom in each one of the congressional offices. Did you know that? You were worked up there, right?
Yeah, I don't remember there being a bathroom in every... Yeah, I guess that makes sense now that I picture it. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, so his point being, this is like a controversy about nothing, because if this transgender person is a congressperson, they have their own private bathroom.
I disagree, Brad, because we could have a lot of transgender women with giant swelling prostates that haven't gone in for their check. They haven't found a cute nurse with skinny fingers to look into them. And maybe they have a giant swollen prostate and they need to hit the facilities before they make it back to their office. What if you're coming from a committee room and you think, wow, I had a little too much coffee?
The interesting thing about this is that you look at the election results, and what's interesting to me is I've heard this a couple different times. NPR is actually running stories where they are talking to minorities, racial minorities, and ethnic minorities, and all sorts of different types of minorities, and asking them why they voted for Trump. And the answers to me are like, okay, I understand that 100%. And most of them are things like, you know what? It's gotten out of control with all the crime. You know what? The immigrant situation's gotten out of control. And it's to the point where now you look at that and you go like, okay, I get it. And you look back at the election we just went through, and the crazy thing was, once again, there's a soundbite that Armstrong and Getty uses. They're on the air right after us between 8 and noon. They have this soundbite of Mayorkas when he's being interviewed, and essentially he was I think he was like being subpoenaed to a congressional hearing or something like that. And his response was, "I have a very busy day Monday. I have a very busy day Tuesday. I have a very busy day Wednesday." So in other words, he doesn't have time for the congressional, subpoena, where if you and I were subpoenaed by the Congress, and if we didn't show up, guess what? We would be arrested, correct?
Of course we would. And hey, let's go back to that topic of minority folks weighing in on the presidential election. I have a piece up today from a woke television station in Kansas City who surprisingly speaks to a Latino man who says, hey, Donald Trump spoke to me, and P.S., I do not consider abortion to be, quote, health care. I have a link up to that today. That's from the great Sam Lee. I got it from him on X. But Brad, you're right. I mean, for Democrats, it's like Joe Biden's comment to Charlemagne the God, where he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
See, and to me, that is the exact example of racism. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to me,
yeah, exactly. And by the way, who is it for Joe Biden to tell a black man whether he's black or not?
But once again, the point being is, if I said to you, hey, John, you're a white guy from North County, I bet you like Emo's Pizza. And you go, well, Brad, I don't. I like Chicago style, right? I mean, like,
yeah, exactly.
And I would go like, John, how can that be? You're a white dude from North County. You have to like Emo's Pizza.
You have to.
Right.
Yes.
You have to like Emo's Pizza. It's like, once again, we're all different. We all, even though we have common traits where we're born, like, for example, John and I talk about those all the time. You're not Catholic, correct?
Correct. I'm not, but I'm one of the. Remember, I was the only family on our street to not be Catholic.
And I was pretty much the same thing. It's to the point where, like, I didn't feel oppressed. Matter of fact, my mom used to always, I shouldn't say this, the Catholic people would get mad about this. This is my mom. She would say, sometimes I really sad that I'm not a Catholic because I could do all sorts of bad things and just go to confession and get rid of my sins. You know?
Or for you, Brad, she could go to a drive-in on Easter.
We did that, John. We went to the North Drive-In on Easter. That was our son. You know, once again, yesterday, someone asked me what religion I am. And I say, I don't know. And they go, how can you not know what religion you are? I go, because my mom was like the hippie chick before hippie chicks were hippie chicks. And my mom wanted to expose us to all sorts of different religions. So we went to this church and that church and this church. And we went to Easter sunrise services at the North Drive-In Theater where we pulled into literally a drive-in theater, put the speaker on our window and listened to the preacher man give us the Easter morning sermon. I mean, how many people can say that? Is that bizarre or what?
It is. And Brad, as your therapist told you, when your mom said she wanted to expose you, she didn't mean that you should grow up and expose yourself. And I know that's been a sticking point with your 12-step group of exhibitionists. But the other thing is, Brad, I think you're missing a branding opportunity when you're not telling people that you're a member of GodSquad.cloud.
Well, I am. I'm the global lead pastor of God Squad, and I'm the only.
You know what? And I thought of this today when we were talking about Caleb Rowden. You know that Caleb Rowden was formerly, before politics, he was a Christian rock star.
You told me that.
Do you think it's possible that you could work out something with Caleb Rowden where you could play some of his music on GodSquad.cloud? Because I know now that you can hear some really inspirational, and thanks to Shelley Barr, we know that we should describe the music as helps you lead a prosperous life. But do you think Caleb Rowden would share some of this prosperous music with you to play on GodSquad.cloud?
Hold on a minute. It's CL, before we go to break here, CALEB and ROWDEN, ROWDEN.
Yeah, and folks who followed me closely on social media know that I have pulled some excerpts from some of Caleb's previous concerts, Brad, and I played some, I've helped share the joy of his music to folks.
I'm looking on YouTube if I see if he's got any music up there. Can you actually hear it? I mean, is Caleb Rowden music, MUSIC, see if I can find that. I don't see anything. The most amazing jazz harmony. Caleb Rowden, your name high. 15 years ago. Oh, I did find it. Wow. Look at that.
Yeah, they're pretty good. He's got some pretty good concerts. Now, over a period of time, I think he lost the accent. He had kind of a Christian rock star accent that he would use. There was kind of a down-home thing. Think like if Lucas Kuntz spoke in a little bit more of his real voice. You get what I'm saying?
How old's Caleb Rowden now? Do you know?
I'm guessing he is early to mid-40s. I'm guessing.
This show's 15 years ago, and he looks like he's like 12 years old in these videos.
And, yeah, he's got a young face. He's got a youthful face. I mean, working in the Missouri Senate will probably take that away from you, Yeah,
it's like they show the pictures of the presidents when they start on day one and 4 years later.
As they age.
they look like, my God, did that happen in 4 years? Yes, it did. Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?